We're off by less than a minute.
You were quoting chapter and verse. Hebrews.
Yeah, I know. But by less than a minute. I don't know how you do that.
No, it's the washing machine minute. Those are longer. Yeah.
Amazing how minutes become long.
Good evening and welcome to our May 12th City Council meeting. Councilman Arbizo is excused, and if you would please, make sure your phones are turned off or silenced. Councilman Brad Hemphill will lead us in the pledge, and then Councilwoman Brantner will lead us in the invocation. Please stand.
I
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. As we come together in this place of civic responsibility, may we be mindful of the privilege and duty entrusted to us. Let us be guided by clarity of thought, strength of character, and a genuine desire to serve the common good. May our conversations be marked by respect and collaboration, even when we differ, and may our choices reflect the values and hopes of those we represent. Let us lead with patience, act with wisdom, and move forward with purpose, always keeping the best interests of our community at heart. With appreciation for each voice at this table, we begin tonight's meeting. Amen.
Thank you. Any citizen comments on agenda items? No. On non-agenda items? No. Then we'll move on to item number 7, presentation, Siegel Community-Wide Brownfield Assessment Grant presentation. Amy.
Thank you. My name is Dave Laney. I work for Stantec. We're a consultant to Southeast Arizona Government Organization. Here to talk to you about the Southeast Arizona Property Reuse and Revitalization Program. This is a program that's funded by a grant from EPA that was awarded in 2023. It's a 4-year grant, so it goes until September 30th of 2027. It's available to all cities and towns and property owners in Graham, Greenlee, and Santa Cruz County, and all the cities and towns therein. So it's a pretty all-encompassing grant. It's available for properties that are impacted by hazardous substances such as asbestos, lead-based paint, but also petroleum, and it's for both privately owned and publicly owned properties. The nice thing about this particular program is that it's not an enforcement program. So even though the money comes from EPA, folks that get assessments with this grant have no obligation to perform any follow-up activity. The idea is to give property owners information about their property And then they can make an informed decision about what they want to do, whether they're interested in selling the property, doing some sort of redevelopment or revitalization, renovating a building, et cetera. So this is an effort by SEGO and the counties and cities that I mentioned to identify, plan for, provide technical assistance and funding to property owners who want to reuse or revitalize property. The emphasis is on vacant, underutilized, abandoned, sometimes contaminated property. And I'll explain that a little bit more in just a minute. But the goal is to try to work on property that can improve economic and workforce development. There is a group of folks in each of the counties and several of the cities who are working on this grant. Here in the city of Safford, Jamie Imbick, Community and Planning Director, is our main point of contact at this time. As far as the properties that are eligible, I mentioned that this is a grant from EPA. It's actually what's called a brownfield grant because it has to do with properties that are called brownfields. A brownfield is any property, the reuse, expansion, or redevelopment of which is complicated due to the presence or perceived presence of contaminants, hazardous substances, or pollutants. The key here is the potential presence. So a lot of these properties do not have contamination, or the contamination that they've got is so low in concentration that it's not of concern to any regulatory agency. What all of these properties have in common is that they don't have a well-documented history of prior use. And so if a buyer or a developer or an investor or a banker is interested in the property, there's enough uncertainty a lot of times that they will go to a different property entirely. Potentially a property that's never been developed before. And this grant can help to address that uncertainty and to move these properties forward. Okay. One of the things that you may know about brownfields or may have heard if you're familiar with the term is that there are a lot of things like former gas stations, former dry cleaners, former manufacturing facilities that are traditional brownfields. But we also do a lot of work on properties like this, old schools, some old hospitals, health clinics, strip malls that have closed down, undeveloped parking lots, vacant lots, abandoned rail yards. We do a lot of property assessments on property that you wouldn't think of as brownfields. The thing about brownfields is that they don't generate tax revenue, they don't create new jobs, they don't increase property values. In fact, property values will go down if you have enough brownfields, and they result in disinvestment, blight, increased graffiti, increased crime. There's a lot of negative aspects to having brownfields in your community. But if you are successful in redeveloping brownfields, a lot of those things can turn around entirely. You can get new jobs, increased tax revenue, increased property values. EPA's data shows that property values can increase by 5 to 15%, not just on the brownfield, but as far away as 4 blocks around each brownfield that's redeveloped. And as far as economic development, for every $1 brownfield grant that's invested in one of these properties, somewhere between $18 and $20 of other investment is also made on those properties. As far as what is available, what can be paid for with the grant. There are a number of different assessment activities and a couple of different planning activities, and I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'll just hit some of the highlights here. The first is a brownfield property inventory. We ask cities to tell us, give us a focus area where there might be brownfield properties. This is the focus area for Safford. We've done an inventory here. We have 30 potential brownfield properties in that focus area that have been identified so far. And there is a letter that the city sent out to the property owners just letting them know about the grant. And there is a lunch and learn session tomorrow where all the brownfield property owners are invited to come and learn more about the grant and ask questions. This shows you where some of those brownfield properties are located. This shows you some of the types of properties that we're talking about. Some of them are vacant lots that used to be gas stations or auto repair facilities and haven't been effectively redeveloped for many years. Some of them are old buildings that are currently vacant. And buildings that are built prior to 1980, a lot of times will have a higher chance of having asbestos and lead-based paint in them. The thing that the property owners have to do if they're interested is they just fill out what's called a site nomination form. It's a 2-page form. Very simple, just ask some basic information. What's the address? Who's the property owner? What's the property currently being used for? Have there ever been any other site assessments done on the property previously? And how soon do you need the assessment? We have done assessments with this grant for properties that are in escrow. So we have the ability to work very fast if we need to. And the types of assessments that we do with this grant include Phase 1 environmental site assessment, which is basically a research exercise where we look at all the historical records on a particular property, aerial photographs, city directories, Sanborn fire insurance maps, things like that. We also do a site visit to document existing conditions. Those can cost about $5,000 if a property owner had to pay for it themselves. But with this program, they're 100% paid for by the grant, and there's no out-of-pocket cost. If there is, as a result of a Phase 1, a potential for a release, like a previous release of petroleum or a hazardous substance on a site, those same property owners would qualify for a Phase 2 environmental site assessment where we go out and we collect some samples, we send it to a lab. Those can run up to $50,000, $80,000 at times. That's money nobody has. With this program, it's free. There's no out-of-pocket cost to the property owner for those Phase 2 environmental site assessments. And then the third thing that we do are hazardous building material surveys, where we'll test a building for asbestos, lead-based paint, that kind of thing. Those run anywhere from maybe $7,000 to $35,000. But with this program, they're free to property owners. As far as planning, there are two types of planning activities that we can do with this grant. One is called a site reuse or site cleanup plan. Say a property owner either has some contamination that they want to clean up, or they just have plans for their property. Say they think that it's ideal for, I don't know, a coffee shop or a community center or a new restaurant, hotel, whatever. But it's all in their head, and they have never had anything drawn out professionally. They can actually get a couple of conceptual design drawings with this plan or with this grant, and those make a world of difference to investors, developers, and bankers. If they need money to like renovate a building or to do some work on the site, it's amazing how how differently those property owners and their vision is viewed when they get a site reuse plan with this grant. We also do area-wide plans, which is where there might be large sections of a town or city where there's multiple brownfields and there's some obstacles to investment and redevelopment. Could be old infrastructure, it could be zoning, it could be parking, it could be several of those items at once. And we develop strategies in combination with, in consultation with the city and with businesses in those areas to try to come up with some ways to counteract those issues and overcome those obstacles. The main difference between the two is one, the site reuse plan is for an individual property. Area-wide plans are for a larger area. But just to give you an idea of what some cities have done with site reuse plans, this is an old hospital that was built by the predecessor of Freeport-McMoRan in Bisbee. It's a 3-story building. The city actually was able to acquire this after it was donated to them. They paid $1 for the property. They got a cleanup grant from EPA to take out the asbestos. It's on the market right now, and they're getting bids of up to $900,000 from affordable housing developers. It'll probably cost them about $5 million to renovate this. But the return on investment, again, for every dollar that EPA contributed here, there's about $24 in private funding that the developers are bringing to the table. So it's definitely a win-win for them. And in a nutshell, that's the grant.
Is that a historical, the Hillcrest Apartments?
It is the Hillcrest Apartments, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yep.
but is it,
It's not on the Registry of Historic Places right now, but the work that was done there did have to be done in consultation. There had to be a consultation with SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, yes. So there's more to the grant than this, but I wanted to keep it short. I know you guys have a lot on your agenda today. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them now. You can also, if you want, come tomorrow to the public meeting. It's across the street at the City Hall Annex between 11:30 and 1 o'clock.
You said it was good till
2027, September
2020.
30th of 2027, or until the money runs out. And
till the money runs out.
and there are multiple cities that are using the funds right now. Clifton has used some of the money. Nogales has used some of the money. Santa Cruz County has used some of the money, and Safford have 2 or 3 properties. I think Safford has had 3 properties assessed at this point.
And you said something about you even utilized it during escrow. So
Yes,
you have worked with realtors
yes,
and small business,
yes, absolutely.
like the small business, for example, the college has their department.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Well, hopefully they're invited to your meeting tomorrow.
I hope so. I'd have to look at the distribution list. We're trying to send it out to as many folks as possible.
It and private. What if there's an NGO attached to something? Will you work with them?
Potentially. I mean, we've worked with a lot of different entities. I mean, the Hillcrest, the first time I did any assessments out there, we were working with a family trust. And, eventually it got into the hands of the city of Bisbee, and that was a little easier. But I mean, we've definitely worked with all different kinds of entities, nonprofits, for-profits, private individuals, colleges, universities, community colleges, for sure.
Ranch.
We have done a few ranches. A few farms.
You
Yeah.
said you didn't about cleaning up toxic. What if somebody suspects there been a dumping going on in their area?
We've got a couple right now. We've got one in Nogales that it was an old a dump that Chicana Por Las Casas wants to buy the property and put up an affordable housing. development there, and it had been a dump, an unpermitted dump where people had just thrown stuff out of the back of their truck, and we went out and did a phase 1 and a phase 2 there, and it turned out there was nothing there that they had to clean up. It looked really bad, but there wasn't asbestos, and there wasn't lead-based paint, and there wasn't PCBs or anything like that.
Well, I hope you have a huge audience tomorrow.
I hope so too.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 2.
All right. Mayor and Council, Troy Bingham, the Finance Director for the City of Safford. This is a presentation we were hoping to give almost a month and a half ago when our auditors came out to present the annual financial report. And we weren't, due to time constraints, we cut this from the program. So I just wanted to get back with you and show you what our debt looks like in the city and how we can manage that going forward. Any suggestions or any advice you guys have as we move forward with our budgets in the future years, just keep this in mind with our debt. So this is our 2024 ACFR. So this is accurate as of June 30th last year. This was audited numbers that come out of our annual financial report. This is our statement of net position. So as you can see, assets at the top, liabilities in the middle, and then net position at the bottom. So the debt is, I've highlighted in yellow, and I've called out the amount of $26.3 million in debt. So that is compared to $214 million of assets. So that's a 12% leveraging. Typically, you can find governments that have anywhere from 30 to 50% of their portfolio is debt. So our leverage is what you could say small or medium at best. So $26.3 million, the detail of what makes that up is first leases payable. This is specifically the enterprise agreement we entered into back, I think, 3 years ago for renting vehicles. We did a pilot for 4 years with them and rented 39 vehicles. And this is the debt that we have, and that debt will end on June 30th, 2029. So that's just a pilot program. If we have decided not to continue on that, we've gone a different debt package. So this program will end in 2029, and currently you can see it's about $1.2 million in vehicle, and you ended up getting 39 vehicles for the city. Bonds, this is exclusively to our general fund. So there's our enterprise fund and general fund. The general fund is paid for by the sales taxes and other taxes that the government's levy. Enterprise funds are paid for by fees from utilities typically and or services that we render. So $16.6 million, this was the PSPRS bond. You'll notice as we get into the detail, our bonding we use exclusively for those PSPRS bonds. So you can see down at the bottom here, this is our bond breakdown. First thing is streets. In 2006, you guys issued your very first debt for streets. You replaced, I think all residential streets were done in 2006. And I was trying to research and find out what that amount was. I believe it was close to $15 million. The debt had a 7% rate on it, and I believe you guys refinanced that in 2015. This is what's left of that 2015 refinancing. You have $2.5 million. The debt in 2015 was $5.8 million. But this all goes back to your streets. This will be paid off in 2029, right when your sales tax increment that you implemented for streets will be expiring at the same time. So our debt will be paid off, and the sales tax increment will be have to be reinitiated at that point. So keep that in mind as we get into 2029. We have a few more years. 2015D was for the Birdno property. We own that property right there on 14th Street, north of US 70, that goes all the way to the water treatment plant. We bought it from the farm, the Birdno property farm, and it was for 2.3%. And it's the last payment will be made this year on, you'll notice, July 1st, 2025, and we'll officially own that outright. So the Birdno property, we borrowed $715,000. We owe $80,000, and it's all due in July. The next one is purchase of the police station, $2.5 million. I think this is what sparked this conversation about debt. $2.56 million we issued back in 2020, and we got it down to 1.785, as you can see, and that'll be paid off in 2034. So the payments are pretty low and manageable. That's what our property tax is used for mostly right now. And again, 2034, the final payments will be made. You only owe $1.7 million. There is a prepayment penalty on this one. So we couldn't do anything until 2030 if we wanted to. So we have to continue to make this debt, and then at that point, we can make decisions on that. So the last one is, again, the PSPRS bonds I was talking about that take up a majority of our bonding, 2.1% to 4.5%. A lot of localities in the state of Arizona had to enter into these. These became advantageous because the amount you were trying to pay PSPRS to get caught up was this not ever getting you caught up. This finally got us to our unfunded liability for our police officers is finally funded. You can show us at a 93 to 95%. So this bond is a one-time purchase. It gets us caught up. We'll have to make payments until 2046. It's not the longest debt we have, but it is one of the biggest. Moving on to loans. As you can see, mostly we use loans in our business type activities. A lot of our WIFA loans that we get through water are loans and not bonds. It's just the full faith of the credit is on bonds. And when you talk about loans, they leverage the project. So technically, if you didn't make your payments, they would take your water infrastructure from you, but that'd be pretty hard since it's all on the ground. So typically it's just, like I said, it's just a nuance. But one of the things you have is the Clance well. We started that back, I think 2015, I believe. It was for $175,000, a very small amount. This was because the Clances wanted us to do it this way. They didn't want to get all the money up front for tax purposes, so they wanted us to space it out over multiple years till 2035, making small payments at 4% interest. The water infrastructure loan, like I talked about, there's not a lot of detail on these two water infrastructure loans. We know one of them was water and one of them was sewer. $1.9 million was issued back in 18 on that one, and the other one was also 2018. But yes, we did a lot of water projects and a lot of sewer projects in 2012 through 2018. I think we refinanced it and got that money back and borrowed over time. But not a lot of detail on that. One of the last things is the compactor at the landfill. We still owe on that till 2026. So we got 2 more years of payments on the compactor. It is showing its age, and it probably needs it would be on the list to be replaced right now, but we still owe debt on it, so we're going to keep it for a few more years and use it till its very last tire falls off. Going to the top, our ladder truck, we borrowed in 2019 for $1.1 million. We owe $553,000, 3.9% interest rate. Great time to buy that truck and lock it in, because now we know that same truck would cost us over $3 million to buy. So debt is sometimes a good thing to leverage, that you can buy things at a reasonable price, and if the price is going up, it's good to issue debt and buy it when it's low so that you can pay for it over time. And if the interest rate makes sense, 3.9%, that's better than we've seen in inflationary growth. So the ladder truck was a definitely good purchase, and we don't have plans to replace it until 2030s, and it looks like it'll be paid off in 2028. The next one is this water infrastructure loan for $4 million. Again, general projects. This is we are still working on a project out at Carrasco Well that we used funds for, this $4 million to pay for. But yeah, we did a lot of water projects related to this at 1.59%. This is where the state of Arizona created an authority called the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority that does a lot of this low interest loans, and the city of Safford definitely took advantage of those. So that kind of disappeared in the 2024 budget or 2025 budget for the state. So we look to see if WIFA ever comes back, but it was a lot of their funding was taken away. So there is no real grants or loans anymore that we're seeing coming out of there, but future projects in the state of Arizona could change that. Last one is the county water, the effluent project we started, where we did a line on 14th Avenue all the way up to Discovery Park over to the county ponds for watering with effluent. It was $2.3 million. We just barely started using that pump as of, I think, March. So the county is now paying for this debt service. So this debt right here is really a conduit for the county. The county makes the payments for us in the form of effluent water that they actually pay for us at a higher rate than domestic water. So all of this adds up to, as I said, 12% of our total debt. And going forward, we hope to possibly leverage debt in the future for things that make sense. Like I said, it makes sense if the cost of the item is going to go up tremendously over the next 5 years. It might be beneficial to get in sooner by issuing debt. But yeah, it's really up to us. We don't issue a lot of debt. We do have capacity, but I just wanted to bring it out there. Is there any questions I could answer about our debt portfolio? That's as simple as it is.
I know you don't like paying off low interest. You told us that it wouldn't be advantageous in some cases.
Yeah, debt right now is about 9% to issue it. So when I get stuff that's under 9%, it's definitely advantageous to keep that for as long as we can.
And what I only saw one bonds, and that was the water.
No, when it comes to bonding, it's the PSPRS bonds. So,
Yeah.
and those, you got it, I think, a 2.1%, all the way up to a 4.5%. So a pretty good interest rate on that. It was at the tail end of being able to refinance it. So you did some good decision making back in the day.
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll close the regular meeting and reconvene into a work session. Item number 1, vehicle and equipment status.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose is to present Mayor and Council an overview and status of the vehicle and equipment for the city of Safford. A little bit of background. The Fleet Department is responsible for managing and maintaining the city of Safford's vehicles and equipment to support various operations. Over time, several vehicles and pieces of equipment have exceeded their recommended service life, leading to an increased maintenance cost and reduced reliability. Analysis. Staff has identified that there are a significant portion of the city's fleet that is outdated, leading to higher costs and downtime. A vehicle and equipment rotation plan introduces a replacement schedule based on usage and industry standards, prioritizing critical assets. Staff believes that the continuous use of this rotation plan will reduce maintenance costs and downtime, improve additional safety and reliability for staff, and have the potential for substantial upgrades for improve operations of the city of Safford. Recommendation is to provide direction, if needed, to the fleet mechanic supervisor, fleet management supervisor on the current status of the vehicles and equipment assigned to the fleet department. All right. Prepare this slide presentation. It's brief. It should take maybe an hour to go through, but we'll work our way through it. So next slide, please, B. All right, number of vehicles and equipment. The city of Safford currently owns and operates 143 motor vehicles and 51 pieces of equipment. They're broken into subsections of light-duty vehicles. The majority of the city's fleet consists of light-duty vehicles, anything from a Chevrolet Equinox to a one-ton service pickup is classified in this. The useful life expectancy of these vehicles is 7 years. In our current status of vehicles, we have 28 out of the 100 vehicles that are beyond their useful life. And the impact of this is increased maintenance costs, downtime, and reduced efficiency. All right, medium-duty vehicles. Medium-duty vehicles are required for tasks that exceeds a one-ton truck's capacity, i.e. Welding trucks, small dump trucks. Useful life expectancy of these is 7 years. Our current status, we have 5 out of 19 vehicles beyond their useful life. The impact is increased downtime, operational inefficiencies, for essential services. Next slide. Heavy-duty vehicles. Heavy-duty vehicles includes large dump trucks, sanitation trucks, and other specialized equipment. The useful life expectancy of these vehicles is 20 years. Current status is 7 out of 25 vehicles are beyond their useful life. And the impact of that is essential service delays and increased maintenance costs. Next slide, please. Sanitation fleet. This is my favorite section. Sanitation fleet includes a side load, rear loads, front load vehicles, as well as dump trucks. Useful life expectancy of these are 7 years. These are high wear vehicles. They have lots of moving parts. They don't go very fast, but they make lots of stops and goes, and it's extremely tough on the vehicle. Current status, 4 out of the 7 vehicles are beyond their useful life, and impact is service reliability issues and increased maintenance costs. Next slide, please. Our police fleet. Our police fleet includes patrol, detective, and administrative vehicles. The useful life expectancy of a patrol vehicle is 7 years, and all the other ones will follow light-duty replacement schedule. Current status, 8 out of the 28 are beyond their useful life, and the impact is increased maintenance, potential delays in emergency response. Fire fleet. Fire fleet includes engines, ladders, tenders, and administrative vehicles. Useful life expectancy is 25 years, except for admin vehicles, which will follow the light-duty vehicle schedule. Current status is 3 out of 7 vehicles are beyond their useful life. And the impact is increased maintenance, operational risk during emergencies. Is that it?
Thanks, Clark. Mayor and Council, Eric Bejarano, your Assistant City Manager. I'm surprised this thing works. They don't let me speak very often. Anyhow, continuing the work session, you have a 6-page fleet policy before you. In the essence of time, I'm not going to go through every line, but I do want to go over some important topics. So there is no old policy, no red lines. This is completely new for the City of Safford. It's an effort to focus on not where we've been, but where we're going with our fleet. In coordination with our fleet manager, we developed this fleet policy. So purpose of the policy is to ensure the City of Safford operates a safe, reliable, cost-effective, and environmentally responsible fleet. This policy creates a standardized strategic approach for replacing, maintaining, and managing all city-owned vehicles and equipment across departments. If you took a tally of what our fleet manager, Clark, just told you, we have about 55 vehicles that are currently in our fleet past their useful life. And this policy will take a responsible approach to replenishing or replacing our fleet. Policy goals is to improve service delivery to our residents by reducing vehicle downtime, extend vehicle life through consistent preventative maintenance, control costs associated with operations, repairs, and capital expenditures, as well as create a replacement schedule based on industry standards and actual usage. We also want to ensure accountability and pride in the professional use of city vehicles. The key components as you looked through this fleet policy, one is the vehicle maintenance standards. So preventative maintenance will be scheduled every 3 months by our fleet manager to my left. Staff will perform pre- and post-use inspections is our plan. Each department will receive a monthly schedule and must communicate any changes in advance to that schedule. Earlier today with our IT folks, fleet manager, we actually had a call with a software program that's going to help support and assist us moving forward with our fleet management, which I think will be superb. Our replacement guidelines are going to deal on a few criteria which deal with age, mileage, repair history, operational condition, and safety and reliability. You did probably notice in your policy there are some new definitions that Clark just went through. For instance, our police and admin vehicles, we're going to look to rotate at 7 years. Our sanitation trucks between 5 and 7, heavy-duty trucks and fire equipment at 20 years, construction equipment 7 to 15 years. This type of plan will help us avoid in the future having 55 vehicles past their useful life. Reassignment and disposal will be within city policy. Vehicles past their useful life will be evaluated for reassignment or disposal through our trade-in or public auction policy. The evaluation will occur annually during the budget process, which we're currently going through. Employee responsibilities include maintaining cleanliness and completing routine inspections, reporting damage promptly, and any negligence may result in disciplinary action, which was actually placed in the policy in coordination with our Human Resources Department. And lastly, benefits of adopting this policy include operational efficiency, reducing surprise breakdowns and reactive replacements, cost management, allowing accurate budgeting and long-term capital planning, professional image, maintaining clean, well-functioning vehicles that are public-facing, and then lastly, safety, of course, is paramount, ensuring safe operation, reliable, and legally compliant vehicles and equipment. With that said, Mayor and Council, I will stand for any questions you might have for either Clark or myself.
I'll give you a second to take a breath.
Sure.
That was really fast. Mine probably got lost in this. Can you tell me what page we're on for the policy where it's at?
I'll refer to B for that. I don't have it in front of me.
I'm looking through,
The
but I'm not
policy
finding-
is actually later in the packet, so
Okay.
we didn't add the policy in the work session and in the area where we would adopt. So if you
Okay,
look,
perfect.
141.
Thank you.
141.
Thank you.
He just, Mayor and Councilwoman Bratner, he was just addressing the fleet overview plus
overview.
the fleet policy, but the resolution is later on for
Oh,
the
thank
fleet
you.
policy.
Thank you.
But the policy itself,
I think
it'll begin on page 130,
141.
sorry, 141.
Councilwoman Flores, I think, just won the prize again. She knew what page it was on.
She's got it.
So we didn't jump agenda items, you
We-
just jumped in there.
I just provided an overview of the fleet policy. We will move to a resolution later in the meeting, yes.
So technically, policy should have been in both places.
And since it's a work session, any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So there hasn't been a policy up till now.
In my 173 work days at the city of Safford, no, sir. I'm not aware of any fleet policy that we've had for the city of Safford.
No, so really no guidance has been given to the maintenance, mechanical maintenance shop. No true guidance.
I would say there's been guidance. It's not been formalized. The 3-month taking vehicles in for preventative maintenance has been standing as long as I've been around. I'm sure our fleet manager could
It's
speak to
also
that.
been, as long as I've been here, it's always been a thing.
How is where's the leased enterprise vehicles? Do they fall into any of this?
Yes, all of our enterprise vehicles, we treat them like they're our own. They're maintained and rolled through the shop every 3 months, like
Okay, so
regular
they're
own
in
property.
they're in these numbers that you've given.
Correct,
us. Okay.
correct.
I know we've been asking this, but you've now got a scheduled maintenance where you're gonna have each department. So we're not gonna have they didn't have this part, we had to go here, we had to go there. We're actually gonna have everything on hand and prepared for the vehicles coming?
I believe it's impossible to have all parts on hand for any vehicle that comes in.
Not all parts, but I mean, when I take my car in every 3 months, I know I'm getting my tires rotated, I know I'm getting my oil changed, I know I need an air filter. So that's the kind
Right.
of thing I'm asking
Those are
about.
the things that we do try to stock.
Because on one hand, we're getting told, well, we can't get it from here, it's too expensive, or they won't deliver, or they want this, or they want that, but then I'm getting told a different story by the business owner, so I'm just wondering, is there a reason? Like, do you know if there's a specific reason? Like if it's cheaper, fine. I just want to know if there's a reason why we're consistently going to O'Reilly and I'm not seeing as much to Mac Auto Parts or even AutoZone. So since you're here and I've been asking, they said that would be your question, I'm asking.
Sure. When we bring a vehicle in for maintenance, I run a shop with myself and 3 mechanics. Currently, we're only staffed with 2. Time is of the essence when it comes to that. We make our phone calls to the availability of parts, try to get the best price and the best service. It's hard to do an oil change when you call and ask for a filter and you wait. Oh yeah, we're on the way. Sure, we'll be right there. You call back 30 minutes later. Hey, where are you guys at? We're coming. We're coming. Oh, we forgot you. And then you call back and 30 minutes later, oh, they haven't left yet. So those are the instances we face with some of them. And sometimes if they would call and say, hey, we're unable to deliver this part, we could run down there and get it. Those are some of the things that we face.
And to your question, so the software I mentioned that we reviewed earlier today, we actually came across a surprise component to it that will help support and assist in part management. So not only tracking some of the challenges that we have locally, but also ordering parts as well. So it should really revamp our operation for fleet. I'm excited for it.
Is the software currently in our budget? In the budget that you've presented?
Is it part of next year's budget?
I think it's next year. I see a head nod from our finance director. Yes.
So as of now, you've not used you're not using any type of software to manage any of the
I
fleet?
mean, by software, it's pen and paper? Yes.
Or Excel?
Excel, I think, has been the go-to.
Some Excel forms, yes.
Okay.
So, and I think part of what we're experiencing is that you have new fleet manager. The assistant city manager has been given oversight of that process. And what we're learning, as we've learned with a lot of other things that we do, without being codified, it is difficult for us to do a seamless handoff from one set of personnel to another. So typically what you do in order to cover bases like that is you come up with a vehicle and equipment rotation policy, because anybody coming in taking on those roles will now see a written version. It wasn't that we weren't doing a lot of this maintenance. It's simply in the table in there that lays out the age of the vehicles was the table we were using. The problem was that everybody wasn't up to speed. The other thing that we've done now, like this year for the first time, I've asked the fleet manager to attend all budget meetings that involve any kind of vehicles that a department's requesting. We did that with IT. We also did it with HR, so that the fleet manager, the finance person, and the department making the request now are all in the room at the same time, making sure that the vehicles being replaced or requested, number one, meet the criteria of the fleet manager, because ultimately they will be the ones deciding whether or not that vehicle gets replaced. And then two, making sure that they're properly costed out. So much of what we were doing in already. It simply wasn't written down. And the issues that you had is, one, transition of personnel, and two, this idea of, were we really communicating well? So finance was maintaining a spreadsheet that said, hey, we're going to keep this vehicle 7 years and then replace it. The fleet manager might look at it and say, we're going to keep it 3 more years, or every year be adding it on, but that information wasn't being conveyed to finance, so that depreciation wasn't being continued. So much of what we're doing was in place. There are some hiccups. So by Mr. Bejarano going in and working on creating a policy, that allows us to codify for whoever takes that job. Here's the process. And then as part of our budget process, we made a change where any departments that serve multiple departments, HR, IT, fleet, are always in that room, in that meeting, so they can have direct conversations. So there's a lot of things that we've been looking at in terms of those processes. And ultimately, this policy is a reflection of what we've learned in that process.
I noticed we used a lot the term useful life. Can you tell me what is going to determine what useful life is? Is it just because someone wants a new vehicle? Is it because the mileage is too high? What are we going to narrow this down to? Because like I've seen Steve's county vehicle he drives, and it's being held together by some duct tape and rubber bands, but it's still pretty darn
That's his
useful.
personal
So
vehicle.
I'll defer to the person that does it, our fleet manager, Clark.
A lot of time that useful life, we do have a lot of vehicles that do get used every day. Police vehicles, when they start their shift, they start, and when they end their shift, they get shut off. We have a lot of running around. We have a lot of trucks that go out into the canyon. But it's a one-owner vehicle with 13 drivers. We run into that. So the wear is there. Speaking with the other Mr. Bingham, actually the depreciation of these vehicles, once you get the vehicle out at 7 years, you've depreciated that asset, and it's time to turn that asset over. You get a higher resale value, a higher trade-in value, and things like that, which are beneficial to keeping a modern, safe, good-looking fleet.
are we trading in, or are we just selling at auction? How are we?
It can go either way.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, and then, I'm sorry, I had one more question. Sorry, guys. So this will get us off of more of a reactive of this needs that, and we're going to more of a proactive
Correct.
maintenance type schedule.
Correct.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thank you.
And the option is always there. There are industry standards that say a sedan should last a certain number of years. You can look at different professional groups and say, hey, we have certain standards. We kind of have developed one that works in Safford, because there are some variations depending on climate, et cetera. But it should be the point at which you begin the assessment. So I could have a vehicle that has a useful life of 7 years, but it's constantly in the shop. Probably in our best interest to move that vehicle along. That's something that the fleet manager would look at and say, this is a lemon. We just have trouble with it. Let's see if we can move this vehicle along. Likewise, if a vehicle is running very well, it may be that you say, hey, it's met its useful life, but it's still running well. The thing is, we have to continue to depreciate it, not because you're depreciating that vehicle, but because you're accumulating the ability to buy the new one, right? And so we were thinking, oh, we're depreciating the vehicle. It's come to the end of that period. We stop. But if you keep the vehicle beyond that, then you have to keep adding money because that cost keeps rising. So there are standards that can be used for various types of sedans, heavy equipment. And I think ours kind of are in keeping with those standards. So there are, a vehicle like a sedan maybe lasts on average 7 years, right? Obviously, a police vehicle is different. It's always running and so on. But it always is the place that you begin. If things are running well, you may not get rid of that vehicle right away, particularly if it's not in like a public safety situation where it has to be, really pressed into service and accelerating, or if it's just riding around town. And then some of those older vehicles also can be moved to other parts of the city where there is a less onerous job duty that's required, but it still has useful life. But again, you have to continue to depreciate or add money in. So if you go to replace that vehicle, then, you can cover that amount of money.
Thank you.
Mr. Bingham, there was a time when Mr. Sansom put a system together for this, and they used to stock their own air filters, oil filters, all their stuff. And I remember him saying that warehousing it and finding it and getting it to the shop wasn't worth. I mean, it costs more to buy it in bulk and store it yourself and find it yourself and get it back. And I remember when he quit doing that and went to buying locally. I don't even know how much room you have up there, and I don't pretend to. Is that a function of the warehouse?
The warehouse has
And-
gotten rid of all functions of stocking anything for the vehicles outside of tires. So we stock our own. Granted, we have a lot of Chevrolets. We buy a lot of Chevrolet oil air filters. We buy them at the case of the time. But it's just a small section. As vehicles change in years, a oil filter that fit a 2020 Chevrolet through 2024 is the same, but model year 25, they change oil filter manufacturers or the oiling system in the engine, so it requires a different oil filter, so that's another filter you have to stock. And we have Ford, Dodge, Chevrolet, International, Mack, Freightliner, Peterbilt, Kenworth, Cat. A lot of equipments to stock things for.
I can kind of understand why you would want somebody else to stock it and bring it to you then.
Correct.
Also, what do you schedule on your 3-month rotation? Is it just an oil change and then see what happens from there?
Yes, all vehicles are scheduled every 3 months on a 3-month rotation. They're all listed. They're all sent out in an email with their vehicle number. Every 3 months, they bring them in for preventive maintenance. That preventive maintenance could be checking the fluids, checking the tires, checking the brakes, and it's just a good check over. That also could turn into, oh, this vehicle's over mileage or close to an oil change. We change the oil, we rotate the tires, inspect the brakes, top off all the fluids, check the wiper blades, make sure the seat belts are functioning, checking the overall condition of the interior of the vehicle, making sure the operator's treating it within the high standards that they should be. When it comes to equipment, we try to bring our equipment in also, which checking for leaks, making sure the machine is greased, replacing wear items such as cutting teeth, cutting blades, air filters, pre-filters, stuff like that. So it could come in, it could be scheduled for, everybody calls it an oil change. A lot of times when vehicles come in, they don't need an oil change. So it could take 30 minutes to an hour to do a preventive maintenance, or it could take 2 hours to do brakes, tires, a full-on service. A lot of our police cars run about 2 to 3 oil changes. They need a set of tires and a set of brakes. An oil change in the middle of it.
And like, I mean, anybody that goes down the canyon or anybody that, your police officers, you kind of know, probably based on driver even, how often they're going to need a brake job
Correct.
or tires.
Correct.
But run-of-the-mill vehicles, is that pretty hit and miss? I would guess it is. I mean, I don't know.
What do you mean by hit and miss?
Well, I can't call you and tell you that my truck's gonna need brakes when it gets there.
No, most operators
mean-
don't.
Some people might notice something that triggers that, but
Right.
I just wonder how much of that stuff do you stock? The
Um,
surprise stuff.
The surprise stuff, police car brakes, we try to keep a set of front and rear police car brakes Now they, due to the manufacturer of the police car, they're kind of a performance brake with special compounds. They're not brakes like you'd find on an everyday Tahoe. So they're kind of a specialty thing we have to order. We have a huge fleet of them, so we try to keep brakes. But things like water pumps and motor mounts and alternators and drive belts, those aren't things we stock. They're not a high use thing. It's, you pull it up on the rack and you look at, this has got a coolant leak. Oh, it looks like it needs a water pump. Well, now's the time to change it, not when it loses the drive pulley off on Central Avenue at 3 a.m.
Thank you. I think you've kind of made me understand how you function.
Okay.
Kind of lost track because we jumped ahead. A lot of this I thought was going to come out when we were talking about the policy. Because like the stuff you addressed, the seat belts and all them things, it shouldn't be your job. That should be the operator's job to identify these things daily, what is taking place, the seat belt with their walkarounds that they do before and after operation checks, off their checklist. I don't even know if they have a checklist. I'm sure some CDL is required to do
Right.
that prior to.
All CDL drivers should be doing
Yeah,
a walk around and
a lot of this information should be gathered for you before it even gets to your shop that it's taken place. And then two, on services with your parts, you apparently, in what we're looking at in a policy, you'll be given notice that something may be coming in possibly 2 days prior for an service. You have plenty of time to get the parts within that time frame.
A lot of times we don't know what the vehicle needs until we have it in our hands and up on our rack and looking at it.
And it would help you if you knew a little bit more. So I think the lead person should be having their operators do these checks and taking care of them for you and signaling you beforehand a little bit more.
Right. They also have the availability to, if they're having a vehicle problem, we are open for those problems. They're more than welcome to bring those vehicles in as necessary. Hey, I got a nail in my tire. We fix tires, Hey, I got a tire that's separated. Sometimes tires separate outside of your 3-month inspection. Hey, I got a coolant leak. Those things
Yeah,
pop up and
They can
It's
see
not-
underneath the vehicle. Plus, they should be keeping track of their mileage also. Where they use and how much they've been driving this, and that helps you know whether your service is coming too. But this isn't something I saw addressed in the policy, which we'll get to later, I guess. But you could use a little bit more help. And then your data, you need to figure out some way to get some data collection going on.
we have paper files and they're documented very well, but let's get out of 1960 and let's get into the 2025.
Well,
I think that's what this new software that we're implementing will do, and it'll be a little bit of a learning curve as there also is to new things, but we're kind of excited to get moving that direction.
but I think the policy we're going to be looking at needs to be tweaked a little bit more. I don't know if you guys recognize that or not, but there's more that can be done to be able to help the maintenance. The maintenance is the most important thing of all, because if we're not running, we're not working. So
Right.
You need to be brought up a little bit more with help and data and whatever you need.
Well said. And to your point, like Clark said, the software is really going to support this. The policy was written to be really a live document. It's going to be edited and added to. Matter of fact, our fleet purchasing policy will eventually find its home in this policy as well. So a lot of stuff we're looking at currently to make process improvement. So we'll see a lot of things changing in the coming months, all for the better, I hope. But that's where we're heading.
Do you have an idea of when you're going to start using the program?
We did the launch today. They're actually allowing us some early access to the program. I believe Fleet Manager shared some initial data with them today, and they're going to start building out some of that database for us. and then we should be ready to go. I believe our next meeting is next
Next
Tuesday or Wednesday sometime, and we'll be off to the races with it.
And just to Vice Mayor's point, in the policy, there's a section that specifically addresses routine inspections before and after each use. Employees should perform visual inspections, checking tire condition and pressure, fluid levels, functionality of lights and signals, windshield and windows for cracks or damage, any new dents, scratches, and other damage. And then one of the things in keeping with that, because that's more, I think, your point, which is the actual, hey, let's help in maintaining the vehicle. In the past, the council, I think Councilman McGoy had made a comment about us leasing vehicles, and that, there were some concerns about, us as employees using those vehicles and maintaining them and treating with some level of pride. And so what the assistant city manager also put in there is a pride in vehicles section that says, hey, let's represent the city and take care of the vehicles. So there is a section that specifically addresses some of the walkarounds after each use. And there's also the desire just to have the employees take pride in the vehicle since it's not theirs, and do a better job at trying to keep them in top condition. So some of the stuff that we've been doing as we've done our walkarounds in the facilities is, when we were out at the Fleet Building, we were looking at a place where maybe we can set up a power washer where they would be able to maybe have the quick ability to clean down a vehicle on their own when they bring it back in. A lot of times, especially water, if they're working in dirt. So we're looking at the different facilities. I know there's a lift on the side that they use for maintenance, but we're trying to identify an area where maybe we can also put a power wash system, so you could at least give it a quick rinse off if you got a bunch of dirt on it. So you'll notice in the policy there is the idea of scheduled maintenance and what that looks like, but there's also the idea of the employees, as the Vice Mayor's pointing out, they have to take some level of responsibility with that equipment and do the walkarounds, and then also things more cosmetic like cleaning the vehicles down, make sure there's not a lot of garbage in the vehicle that someone will want to get into it. So again, the idea of the software, the policy containing things about pride of ownership, and some of the issues that the Vice Mayor's brought up in the past, in fact, these same issues, we incorporated a lot of that into this. So it's a very comprehensive look at how we do vehicle and equipment rotation. And I think our deputy finance director one day basically said, if you look at the equipment that we have, the overall value is almost the equivalent of our water infrastructure. So this is the first time that we as a city are bringing to you as a council vehicle and equipment as its own separate item. Generally, what we've brought is, here's a department, here's the equipment that they're using. We're now changing gears and saying we're going to treat vehicle equipment in rotation, given its overall value, as a separate and distinct item in the budget process. So that's why we're bringing it as a separate issue. Again, the introduction of the policy software. So it's a very comprehensive look at this issue.
Mayor Ortega, Vice Mayor Lopez, we are in a work session, and the agenda item is discussing the fleet policy, so you're welcome to discuss it now too if you have any additional questions on that fleet policy. I apologize it wasn't attached directly after Clark's presentation, but this would be a time to discuss it during the work session.
That's what this is
Okay,
for.
if we're in a work session, okay.
Yes.
Because I did look around and wonder, why are we talking about that agenda item that's not here yet?
Yeah,
So-
it's on the description. I didn't attach it directly after Clark's presentation. I apologize.
I didn't want to upset you, B, so I wanted to.
I don't want to
stay within
upset you
the
either,
parameters.
Vice Mayor.
But, okay then, because the maintenance is more, Mr. Bingham, a piece of equipment, it has grease certs that you need to hit daily, before operation, after operation. I don't know, in the policy, I didn't see an orientation to actually make sure these people are being taught how to can operate that equipment. I know, why would they be let on there and stuff, but we have people that can't drive a stick. So somebody gets in a vehicle and starts to pull the trailer, do they know to put that in the lower gear? Do they know to put it in tow mode? There's a whole gamut that works on your vehicles that the policy doesn't address as far as training, and I think that's the lead person of the crew that
Correct. I
probably
believe
needs to identify that.
the daily, weekly,
Weekly,
monthly
daily?
maintenance that
Hmm.
rolls back into the department that owns and operates that piece of equipment, such as the sanitation, street departments, if they're operating a backhoe. When we do buy a new piece of equipment, we do have the selling dealer come in and do an in-service on it, even if it is as simple as a machine as a backhoe. Pointing out grease points, filters,
Yeah.
this stuff should be done weekly. My shop can't do the weekly maintenance or the daily maintenance.
No, sir.
That we can't do that. That's up to the end user, because that is an end user thing. But when it comes my turn, we grease all those things, we maintain all those things, check over all those things, making sure they're being done. And if they're not, we try to communicate with the operator and that department to make sure that they start doing that,
Yes,
or it
sir.
can fall back into our disciplinary.
There should be a grease gun on just about every piece of equipment. I'm done for now, Mayor.
Anybody else?
I got one more question, and I
Sure.
don't know how it applies, but there was some talk about keeping track of mileage. How does your fuel pump work? As far, I mean, I know you have to enter your mileage to get fuel. What does that give you as far as information?
I really have no access to that on my end, but it will with this new software. We will be linking that mileage and that fuel usage. It will be able to be something that we look at with this new software. It'll be linked to our fuel cloud system.
So that's not been in your purview.
Correct.
Who does look at it then? Just whoever's ordering fuel?
The warehouse has access to those records, and I believe Ms. Suter up in finance takes care of our fuel report. What she does with it, I just know she does it. I don't know what she does with it after that.
Seems like that would be your first line of information to me.
Like I said, once we get this software, it'll give us access into that, and we'll be able to link into it and be able to see how much fuel that vehicle's using over its time when we pull it up for maintenance.
I'll shut up.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Either we'll go ahead and close the work session and reconvene into our regular meeting. Item number 11. Everybody have a chance to review the minutes of April 28th? Any corrections or?
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes for April 28th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to approve the council minutes of April 28th, 2025. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Then we'll go on to item number 2, final plan of development for the 165-unit planned development known as Villa and Cottages on 14th.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be presenting 2 items tonight, and Mr. Polson, the applicant, is here as well to answer your questions. And this first is a request for Mayor and City Council to approve or deny the final plan of development for the 165-unit planned unit development known as the Villas and Cottages on 14th. Mr. Polson has brought a color representation for you, and the other documents are in your packet. Strategic goals are growth and development. Background, staff has been working with this developer since early 2024 to bring a 165-unit housing development to the city of Safford. This is one of the final steps of approval for this project. The preliminary plan of development for the planned unit development was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 19th, 2024 by a vote of 6-1. The minutes from that public hearing are attached. This project has involved the relevant department heads, and they are available for questions this evening as well. The property is currently listed as Graham County parcel number 101-20020C. The property is currently undeveloped. The applicant is proposing a subdivision on the property as well that will be a separate agenda item. Current zoning, the property was rezoned to the multiple Family R2 Residential District in March of 2024. The City of Safford rezoning process was followed, including the required neighborhood meeting and public hearings. The current land use is undeveloped vacant. Surrounding land uses, Safford High School to the north, and the school board and school superintendent have no comments and are positive about housing in the City of Safford. South is our single-family homes, R110 and public facilities. To the east are Safford Schools, public facilities, and undeveloped agricultural residential property. To the west, undeveloped R16 and single-family residential. Your analysis: the developer and their engineers submitted their final plans for the planned unit development on April 17th, 2025. Phase 1 is shown fully on the plans, and Phase 2 is shown fully on the plans that have been turned in this week. And we also have the full set of plans in the back of the room if anyone would like to review them after the meeting. Plans have been reviewed by all staff and the city attorney for completeness. The required information has been submitted as required in Section 17.72.120, and staff sees no significant defects in the plans. The corrections requested on the plans were completed, and their engineer has sent me a letter with those verifying that they were completed on May 9th. Large-scale development. Purpose of this chapter is to establish development policies, procedures, and standards necessary to review land development proposals in a timely manner and to ensure that land development is properly planned and executed with due consideration for public utilities, facilities and services, surroundings and environment, and general public health, safety, and welfare. The provisions of this chapter will provide for more flexibility in land use development and result in urban development, which is more efficient in the use of land. These regulations will allow a better quality of living environment than could otherwise be obtained under restrictions imposed on a lot-by-lot basis. You'll notice in the second section, 17.72.020, planned unit developments are required to follow these additional standards. City of Safford General Plan Housing Element Goal number 4 is to provide safe, decent, and affordable housing for a wide range of income levels, household sizes, and age groups. This property is part of the Safford General Plan land use and character area. Changes in housing demand state that housing demand is also changing because of major demographic shifts. These shifts include the aging of baby boomers, a decrease in household size, changes in family structure, and the fact that younger adults prefer urban mixed-use environments. National Center for Transit-Oriented Development provides that 2/3 of demand is still for large, single-family dwellings, and 1/3 is for smaller housing choices, including apartments, townhomes, as this subdivision, live, work, and bungalows. Although recent market trends indicate an increase in this type of housing, Safford's market isn't fully meeting this demand, and the increasing competition for units in denser, mixed-use neighborhoods paired with the current economic recession may increase the demand for these housing products. The next section of your report is the final plan of development and documents. And within 1 year after approval of the preliminary plan of development, which was done by the Planning and Zoning Commission, the developer shall submit to the department for review prior to consideration by the council a final site plan of either the entire large-scale development or the first stage of such development. In this case, we have full plans for both phases. And you'll notice letters A through F are the requirements that we reviewed to make sure that these qualify for your review. Recommendation: staff recommends approval of the final plan of development for the 165-unit planned unit development known as the Villas and Cottages on 14th, as the plans conform to the requirements stated in Section 17.72.120. The corrections requested on the plans have been completed and were submitted on May 9th. Attachments in your packet are Planning and Zoning Commission minutes dated August 19th, 2024, and the final plan of development. You'll notice with the asterisks there that the full plan set has been available for review in the planning department, and as of today, no members of the public have come in to review that. And also, in discussion with Mr. Casella today, we'll be working with our department heads now that we've used our revamped subdivision policy to go through this item by item and continue to work on improving this process. Well, that I will stand for questions, and Mr. Polson is available, as well as the department heads, if you have technically specific questions. And Mr. Sims is on the phone to answer any legal questions.
I do have a question. I was reading through and I did see that Chairwoman O'Donnell had had a problem, not a problem, just more of a concern about the traffic. And I have to second that because I have to use Relation every single day to get to work from my house. And I saw that the study was done during summer when school is not in. But when I have to sit before 14th on Relation, a good 15 to 20 minutes as that line backs up for the parents to turn right onto 14th, I want to know if you've redone this study and what the plans are, because I can't sit there for 30 minutes and having to go all the way down and around is a real pain. And so there's lots of kids there walking on that street every morning. I see them every morning, walking, riding their bikes, scooters, you name it. But I didn't see that another traffic study was done during school hours so we could see what the actual impact to the traffic is going to be.
Yes, Mayor and Councilwoman Brantner. Mr. Henry is prepared. We did review the plan today, and then Mr. Polson can give us an idea of working with Mr. Henry, what portions would need to be rescheduled, because 90% of the plan is still in effect. And with Mr. Henry and Mr. Polson, they can answer your technical questions.
Thank you.
I can answer your question. So they did do a traffic impact statement back when about a year ago. It was done in June. But the traffic on 14th Avenue is, it's peak times. There's certain times where cars are lining up on the east side, lining up to drop kids off at Ruth Powell. This is obviously on the west side, and all the turning motions will be going in and out of the west side, going north and south. They did a good job laying this subdivision out. They're about 500, almost 500 feet from Bulldog with their first entrance, and they're back over 300 feet from Relation with their other one, with about 500 feet in between them. There's two entrances coming on to 14th. They did mention in here, they did study if they needed a dedicated right turn only coming into the subdivision, and it didn't warrant it because they're assuming that traffic's going to go both directions, north and south, coming out of the subdivision, 50%, and then use both driveways as well. So granted that the study wasn't done during the school hours, I don't know if that would really give us a whole lot more information as far as their movements coming out of the subdivision, but it possibly could. They come up with some numbers. I can kind of give you an idea of what their peak numbers were. Overall, traffic would be about 1,100 trips per day coming in and out of that subdivision. But during the peak hours, there would be 66 morning between 7 and 9. There'd be 66 traffic movements coming out, or vehicles per hour coming out of there. That's the peak. And then coming home in the afternoon between 4 and 6, there's 85 vehicles coming back in there between 4 and 6 p.m. So that's the peak amount of traffic. The one impact that I see, and we already do kind of have a need for it, would be an analyzing Relation and this and 14th together. That really, this might speed that along, where we need to do a traffic signal study or even a roundabout or something there. We do have irrigation structures and stuff that kind of make that difficult, but I don't see this subdivision warranting studying that intersection for themselves. It would be something that we'd want to probably do as they develop. Can I answer other questions on the traffic study?
I was just wondering if that was going to cause us to put in a light at Relation and 14th, because it gets backed up pretty far.
We're going to need to probably do I don't know if it'll warrant a light. I would like to see a roundabout there. We just don't have the room for it, but it's probably going to need a study done to see if we need a light in the future.
Would that be feasible with the kids that are walking and riding bikes getting across the roundabout?
Could be, yes. We'd have to have crosswalks, kind of like on Church Street. They have it in Thatcher, where they got the narrowed sections where the kids can cross and have an island in the middle. have to be designed as part of the roundabout, but we just have to do a study there and see if it warranted one or the other.
You said irrigation issues, irrigation still active there?
Yeah, they still irrigate. The FFA has that farm across the street there on the corner of Relation and 14th. They irrigate that. And I believe some water still goes down that ditch to the north as well, and
For
crosses
drainage.
8th Street.
Drainage?
Drainage and irrigation. That ditch continues all the way north. It crosses the tracks and crosses 8th Street and goes down clear up to the highway.
Drainage goes a long way. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
I do have a question, and I don't know exactly, I don't remember when this happened, but we had some issues in another subdivision, and we said we'd never let this happen again as far as street widths and setbacks off a garage off the sidewalk or off the street distances. Did we make any changes to those distances? Or were those exceptions to what we required in that subdivision and not now? Or what can you tell me about that?
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman McGoy. There have been additional parking spots added in this to alleviate some of that. There will be no on-street parking, and Mr. Henry can get to discuss the pavement width with you as well. And those should alleviate those issues.
No on-street parking would make a world of difference. So
Yes, sir.
I
And
just was curious what we had changed.
yes, and they've actually provided in the parking plan, I can show you, they've provided well above and beyond the number of required parking spaces for guests and overflow parking. And they've also increased the size. Ours are required to be 9 by 18. These are 3 feet longer to accommodate larger vehicles.
Does that apply on a carport going to a garage?
That, Mr. Polson? Yes,
I'm just trying to keep the trailer hitches off the sidewalk.
yes, sir.
Okay, if we fix that, I'm well on my way to happy.
Yes, we did consider larger vehicles with hitches. Any other questions for Mr. Henry regarding Public Works or traffic?
Mayor, I move that we approve the final plan of development for the 165 unit villas and cottages on 14th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the development plan for the 165 units on 14th Street. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Then we'll go to number 3. Approval or denial of the final plat for the villages and cottages on 14th Avenue.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and City Council to approve or deny the final plat for the 165-unit planned unit development known as the Villas and Cottages on 14th. The same strategic goals of growth and development apply. Background is the same. The city has been working with this developer since early 2024 and all of our city staff to bring this to fruition for housing for the city of Safford. The preliminary plat was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 19th, 2024 by a vote of 6-1. The minutes from that meeting are attached. The property location is the same that we just discussed. The developer and their engineers submitted final plans for the final plat on April 17th, 2025. Phase 1 is shown fully on the plans. We now have Phase 2 fully planned, and they are in the back of the room as well. Plans have been reviewed by all staff and the city attorney for completeness. A note on that, Mr. Sims is working to develop the final language and the CCNRs and HOA documents, and those will be completed before they are recorded. Purpose and intent. The purpose of this title is to provide for the orderly growth and harmonious development of the city, to assure adequate traffic circulation through coordinated street systems with relation to major thoroughfares, adjoining subdivisions and public facilities, to achieve individual property lots of reasonable utility and livability, to secure adequate provisions for water supply, drainage protection against flood, stormwater detention, sanitary sewerage, and other health and safety requirements, to ensure consideration for adequate sites for schools, recreation areas, and other public facilities, to promote the conveyance of land by accurate legal description, and to provide practical procedures for the achievement of this purpose. The same standards in the general plan apply, and it is in the land use and character area with the changes in housing demand. We are in step 3, approval of the final plat. This stage includes submittal, review, and approval of the final plat and improvements required by the council, and recording of the plat with the county recorder, which does have to be done 30 days after approval. Application for approval of the final plat is made to the department. Improvement plans prepared by the subdivision engineer for roads, drainage, utilities, and other related improvements must be submitted for review with the final plat. The rest of the requirements are listed individually. I won't read those out loud to you. You will notice information required on the final recorded plat. Those are the items that the other department heads and I go through to make sure they are all included. I won't read those out loud to you as well. Recommendation. Staff recommends the approval of the final plat for the villas and cottages on 14th, as the plans conform to the requirements stated in Title 16 subdivisions. The corrections requested on the plans were completed. They have been turned in as of May 9th. The attachments are Planning and Zoning Commission minutes dated August 19th, 2024, signature page signed by all required departments, and the final plat. And also, before you do leave, I recommend that you look through the documents that are the back of the room to see how thoroughly and well-planned these subdivisions are, and to get an idea of the information that the department heads reviewed. With that, I will stand for questions, and once again, we do have this color drawing for you, and Mr. Polson and the other department heads are available for questions as well.
Didn't know if they had some of the same questions. Parking.
Could you shed a little bit of light on the difference in the street widths in different parts of there? I'm assuming it's the occupancy that makes the difference. You're assuming no larger trucks or something in the...
Yes, Mayor and Councilman Nagoy. Mr. Henry, if you would come back up and share the paving requirements and also the planned units that we just passed, allows them to reduce the pavement width to 30 feet, and Mr. Henry can give you those details.
Yeah, Mayor and Councilman McGoy, in our PUD section of our code, it allows for the pavement width to be a 30-foot. They did increase, they were going narrower than that. We made them increase it to 30-foot, face of curb to face of curb. And as Ms. Embeck mentioned, they're also doing parking, off-street parking on the one section where some of the lots are going to be deeper than the 18-foot required parking stalls for larger vehicles. Some of the roads are even wider than 30 feet in there, but that's the minimum they could go for the 30 feet with no parking on either side.
Oh, I saw some 30s, some 34s, even some 36s. I just didn't
Yeah,
know what...
yeah, some of them are
what
wider than 30, and then some with parking are even a little bit wider, so. Our standard, just to give you an idea, our standard residential street is 36 foot of pavement, but that's with parking on both sides.
And I know we have some, I think, want to say 33-foot streets back there, but there's parking on them, so that makes the world of difference.
And I think that subdivision you're talking about was supposed to only have parking on one side, and that was the compromise, at least that was prior to me being here, but I think that's what originally why it was approved, because it was supposed to be parking on one side, and that.
I know we just, as a group 10 years ago, said we're not going to let that happen again, and
I think as long as there's no parking on the streets, it should work fine, because we are going to have to get in there with sanitation trucks. The south part is going to be more of the 90-gallon cans. We're going to have to get in there and dump those, and then the north half is the containers, the front load containers. We'll have dumpster enclosures up there for that side.
Will our fire trucks have any issues with these, since these are going to be pretty high density? Are those roads wide enough for the fire trucks to easily maneuver?
The civil engineer designed them to the fire truck radiuses. I remember that being brought up early in one of the conversations. I'll let the expert.
Yes, Mayor and Council, reviewing the plans with the no parking on the street, I don't see an issue with the fire trucks going
Who
through.
are we going to have policing? Is this going to be up to our police officers to police the streets, or who's going to be doing this? Are we looking, is that local? Is that, because I mean, I know Copper Canyon has an HOA and they don't do a fairly good job of keeping that up, so.
Yes, Mayor Ortega and Councilwoman Brantner, Mr. Sims and Mr. Polson can handle those questions. They've been working on their HOA documents today and also their CC&R documents. So I will defer to them for those questions.
Mr. Mayor, this is Bill Sims. The developer provided Jamie some language on Friday concerning that very issue. When you authorize a subdivision, you're in effect relegating to the owners of homes in the subdivision that the HOA will be successful. There's a draft CC&Rs that have been prepared that contemplate an HOA. The city code requires the formation of an HOA, and it requires the posting of bonds. I've mentioned this to the developer, and he agrees that when you approve this final plat, it should include language that would say that no permit prior to the issuance of the first building permit, the city code bond and HOA requirements shall be satisfied. He pointed out that it makes no sense to force him to post bonds now that are expensive before he does the work. And it makes no sense now to form an HOA before he does the work. You as a government need to make sure, because the minute you issue a building permit, then you're in. And you need to make sure that the subdivision will be successful, and you need to make sure the HOA will be successful. That's why he has CC&Rs. That's why your code allows you to approve the CC&Rs. I looked at them over the weekend. I talked to the developer today, but he should speak for himself if what I'm about to say is inaccurate. He doesn't mind that if we modify this final approval to include that no permits will be issued until an HOA is established and bonds as required by city code are established. And I should let the developer weigh in if I said that incorrectly.
That was correct. And if I could add one other thing, the CC&Rs for Copper Canyon, and the issue there is that they do not restrict on-street parking. The way that they're drafted is they state that the homeowners should park in the garage first if the space is available, then the driveway, then the street. So they're trying to enforce parking on the street when the CC&Rs do not prohibit it. And so it makes for a very messy situation because those CC&Rs would have to be amended to restrict on-street parking. We are restricting on-street parking from the onset. There will not be on-street parking permitted from the beginning. And so when lots are sold to individuals who want to move into the community, they will have to acknowledge those CC&Rs and abide by the rules of them.
I just don't want to see our police become traffic cops in an HOA. I want to make sure they're where they need to be.
I need to mention that these are going to be recorded in private streets as well. It's private streets to private. He's got a great retention area in there with some playground. That's all private, just like Copper Canyon. It's maintained by the HOA.
I just wanted to ask, so did we get input from the realtors on the need for these smaller units?
Yes, Mayor and Councilwoman Flores, I'm participating with the Freeport-McMoran sponsored housing plan, and that has already come up, and that we at the current already have a shortage, especially of these starter homes that are being referred to in Arizona, and it's only going to grow. And Mr. Polson can elaborate on the reason that he's decided on this density and this price point is so that those first-time home buyers do have an option.
And is the park the HOA responsible for the park? Yes.
This may be a Bill question, but what is our standing if the HOA decides not to have a meeting and goes defunct?
Well, there's a bond. You have a bond that you can call upon, and they will be in breach, and you can bring an action. That's why. That's why we need to see. I saw for the first time the CCNRs, and we need some work on the CCNRs to make sure there's not a problem. But right now, that would be a breach, and if need be, you would call on a bond, which is unnecessary. Hopefully, the HOA will perform. But if they don't, then you have to step in, and we use the bond.
Yes, and Mayor and Councilman McGoy, you'll also notice that no construction grading or drainage improvements may commence until the final plat has been approved, recorded, required permits have been obtained from the city, and adequate assurances provided. And so my department will be working directly with Mr. Sims to make sure that all of those documents are approved and recorded before any building permit is issued through my department. And there are also in the planned unit subdivision section, there are also safeguards put into that section, and there are also directions of how to enforce those if that did happen and it did default.
My problem with it is I'm sure it's going to start out awesome, but when that neighborhood is 10 or 20 or 30 years old, just my experience with HOAs is they fall apart and they go away and nobody knows anything about them, and the city is left holding the bag. So, and the bond at that point is not worth enough to deal with it. And the city ends up with the parks and all the headaches, and I just don't want to end up there, but I don't want to start out there either, so.
Mr. Mayor, that's exactly the kind of conversation I had with the developer today. We need to make sure the bond is adequate, and we need to make sure that the HOA is properly formed for the very reasons you just described.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or anything? If not, it's an action item.
Mayor, I move that we approve the final plat for the villas and cottages on 14th Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the final plat for the villages and cottages on 14th Avenue. All in favor? Opposed? Done.
Thank you.
Item number 4, fire apparatus purchase.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to ask for your approval in the purchase of 2 Pierce fire apparatuses. One will be a heavy-duty rescue pumper at the price of $1,185,000 with a prepayment, and a 3,000-gallon tender at $710,000 with a prepayment also. The purchase of these 2 apparatuses will replace an pumper that we have right now that's 25 years old and a tender that's 25 years old. They've both outlived their useful life and are taking more maintenance than the rest of our fleet. The current wait time on these apparatuses is 49 to 54 months on a pumper and 35 to 40 months on a tender. The city intends to cash fund these apparatuses. By doing that, we're able to use a prepayment discount, which will save us about $250,000. Pierce participates in a procurement process through Sourcewell, which is what we'll be using as our contracting pricing on it. I've been working on this for the last 3 to 4 months with the fleet department on as far as speccing out the motor, pump stuff that they work on, with other members of the fire department as far as the needs of what our local agency needs. And I've been working with the finance department on figuring out how to fund these, and we're going to fund them through set aside a little over 1.3 million already in our fleet fund, and then with the ongoing new vehicle purchasing. My recommendation to the mayor and council is the approval of this to get us back online with our service and usefulness of our fleet. Right now, we have 3 units that are outside of that 25 years, so this will at least replace 2 of them. Stand here for any questions.
What's the time to get the third one? Is it?
I'm holding off right now until we can figure out what we're doing with our station. If we can figure out this year what we're doing with the station, then we'll move forward because, as you know, we only can house so many of the newer style ones. So if we got the opportunity to build a new station, remodel what we have, then I'd like to lean towards getting another bigger engine. But if not, then we'll have to look at another smaller one like the ones we ordered back in 13. So the idea would be in the next year or two to order the replacement for the third one.
Is the district contributing,
Yes, the district paying for half.
paying for half?
Yep.
I like hearing that.
And I've had meetings with them, and they approve of our new fleet schedule and payment, the increase in our budget this year.
You say you got with others to spec it out to make sure you're getting what you want on it?
Correct.
Okay.
And our ladder truck was purchased through this company also, and we do have a good relationship and good service through them on parts and maintenance, which really leads to less downtime on our equipment.
Then, Mayor.
Mayor, I move that we approve the fire apparatus purchase.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, a first and a second to approve the fire apparatus purchase. All in favor? Opposed? Done.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Item number 5, property purchase, assessor parcel number 101-19-045.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for Mayor and Council to approve the purchase of an approximate 0.13 acre parcel of land, assessor's parcel number 102-19-045, located at 722 South 11th Avenue in Safford. This land would benefit the city for the potential future widening of 8th Street. Strategic goal is growth and development. Little background and analysis on this. The current home on the property has been boarded up and not living in for many years. Staff approached the property owner to see if he would be interested in selling. The owner was interested, and so the city hired the Metcalf Team LLC to complete an appraisal of the property. The appraisal report came back with a value of $32,000 for the 0.13 acre parcel with existing building. Staff had a conversation with the property owner and thoroughly evaluated the appraisal and came back to an agreement that the appraised value is reasonable. Staff recommends the purchase of the approximate 0.13 acre of land located at 722 South 11th Avenue for $32,000 plus closing costs, recording fees, and possibly any outstanding liens. Funds required for the purchase of this property would come from FY 24-25 contingency funds to cover the expenditures, and HERF funds. HERF fund revenues would provide the revenue. Stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions? It's an action item. Go ahead.
You said in there for possible liens. Are you anticipating any
Uh,
liens?
That's been handled. Actually, we found out that there's about $1,000 in back taxes that have been paid by someone else. That's going to be held out of the purchase price, and we'll pay that. So it'll come out of that $32,000. It'll come off the cost of it. So Ms. Hembeck's already talked to the property owner. They're well aware of it, so it'll come off. And I talked to the title company as well, so it'll come off the purchase price. I put that in there before I knew all the details, but we did get it handled.
Thank you.
Mayor, I move that we approve the property purchase of assessor's parcel number 101-19-045.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of property, parcel number 101-19-045. All in favor? Opposed? Done.
Thank you.
move on to item number 6, warehouse purchase from Core and Main for water meter for fiscal year 2026.
Mayor and Council, it's Troy Bingham, your Finance Director again. We are here tonight for the request for Mayor and Council to authorize a large warehouse purchase of water meters for fiscal year 2026. Meter replacement project. This project may feel like deja vu to you. We came back about 3 months ago asking for meters also. Those prior meters were for current backlogs in 2025. And we have gotten most of those installed. We have 2 more months of 2025 left. So the meters that you purchased 3 months ago for $335,000 were mostly to get the backlog caught up. This purchase tonight is for an additional 300 meters that'll start the project for fiscal year 2026 that we have in the budget to start replacing the city in zones. So this will be the initial 300 meters of the 886 that we plan to do in that first zone for a cost of $171,084. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve this large purchase for $171,000 for Dana Kempner, a division of Core and Main for meters and transmitters. And I stand for any questions at this time.
Mr. Bingham, can we still read these meters in proximity?
So currently, most of our meters do work, but we do have a high failure rate. A few weeks ago, I sent out an email to the council as a whole, identifying all the failures that we had over the last 5 years. You can see that that's growing over time. It's more and more. The meters were last replaced in 2013 in the whole city at once. So those meters are now 12 years old. They have a 10-year warranty, so they're 2 years past their expected useful life. So we imagine those failures will start to increase as we go on through the project. Again, we're only taking care of 1/10 of the whole service area, so we'll have more and more failures as we go on. This is a project we probably should have got to prior to 2026, so we're a little behind the 8 ball.
No, sir. Are they relaying correctly? If, I think they relay their messages.
Correct, off a transmitter tower.
Yeah, how is that holding up? How's that working
So
nowadays? Not just the individual meters.
The back-end infrastructure was installed in 2013 also. We haven't seen any issues with that, but it needs to be assessed. In fiscal year 2026, we'll take those steps to look at the back-end infrastructure and make sure that it's still reliable and can last for another 10 to 15 years so the new replacements have something to rely on. So we have not done that assessment of the back-end infrastructure yet.
Okay, so that possibly could go dark too.
Correct. It's all electronics and mechanical systems that all have useful lives and failure rates. So those are things that we need to start addressing and looking at. Our IT department helps us, but our AMI department is solely responsible for this stuff. So
That's why I asked if you can still read them in proximity, where they used to just drive by and they could pick up the reading. Do we still have that apparatus alive?
so that they wouldn't work with that. They have to communicate with the tower. The only option we have is to manually read them. So if the battery has not gone dead on the actual meter, we can see what the usage was for the prior month. But if not, we have to make a approximate bill for customers, and that's what we've been doing for some of our customers for quite a few months. So in an effort to get back to accurate data that's relied upon, we want to start getting into this replacement as soon as possible.
So that's another item we need to be looking at pretty soon, is upgrading the collection.
Correct. We'll give you a better assessment of that. It could be that it's still reliable for another few years and we have time, but I don't know that until we actually get out there and look at it a little closer.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Mayor, I move that we approve warehouse purchase from Core and Main for water meters for fiscal year 2026.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the warehouse purchase from Core and Main for water meters for fiscal year 2026. All in favor? Opposed? Done.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 12, resolutions. Resolution R25-005. It's the fleet policy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Eric Bejarano, your Assistant City Manager. This is a request for the Mayor and Council to review and approve Resolution R25-005 for the City of Safford Fleet Policy. Strategic goals being growth and development. Background. the City of Safford Fleet Department is responsible for managing and maintaining the city's vehicles and equipment, ensuring operational efficiency across various departments. Over time, a significant portion of the fleet has exceeded its recommended service life, leading to increased maintenance costs, reliability concerns, and operational inefficiencies. Recognizing these challenges, the city staff have developed a structured fleet policy that includes a vehicle and equipment rotation plan. This policy aims to systematically replace aging assets while aligning with budgetary constraints and operational priorities. By implementing industry standards and best practices, the policy seeks to reduce maintenance cost, minimize downtime, enhance safety, and improve overall fleet performance. The adoption of this policy will support the city's ability to maintain a reliable and efficient fleet, ensuring that essential services continue to operate effectively. The analysis is implementing a vehicle and equipment rotation plan as part of this policy will establish clear usage guidelines and industry standards, ensuring that critical assets are prioritized for replacement. This proactive approach will help reduce long-term maintenance expenses, minimize equipment failures, and enhance the overall safety and reliability of city operations. Additionally, it will allow for strategic upgrades that improve efficiency, ensuring that the city departments have the necessary tools to provide essential services without costly disruptions. By adopting this policy, the City of Safford can better manage its more than $30 million fleet investment, extend the longevity of assets, and enhance operational effectiveness. The recommendation is the staff recommends the approval of the City of Safford fleet policy to support the needs of our vehicles and equipment. That said, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
As I said earlier in the night, I didn't think this policy had gone far enough to make sure the employees took more ownership in their vehicles other than just beautification. And I know you believe it's a living policy that can go on, but I think we need to put more responsibility, identify that, and not only in the individual, but then there's still probably some more the motor, I'll call him the motor sergeant, motor manager, can do. And I'm still reviewing it, but that's my input.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. Well said. So in the policy, you'll see on page 4 of 6, it does detail cleanliness as well as routine inspections. So while we can always be better, the intent was to lay out a foundation that we can continue to build from. I would venture to say that by passing this policy, we're certainly be in a better place than where we are without passing it.
Yes, sir. And I know that lots of times we say, we'll get that put in, we'll build on it, and don't seem like it ever gets accomplished.
So Mayor Ortega, Vice Mayor Lopez, given that routine inspection list that says before and after use employees should perform, is there anything in addition to those items that you could recommend specifically to us that we could add that would satisfy what you're requesting?
Well, when they only read fluid levels, they're not going to touch the radiator hoses. That might need to be part of one of the prescriptions. Look underneath the vehicle, to see if there's any leaks taking place. Latches, they treat their own vehicles better than the way this reads.
Understood. I want to make sure because I don't want it to appear that we're not responsive. I'm trying to figure out exactly specifically what is it. Is there some catch-all? I mean, because it says any new dents, scratches, or other damage.
There's no actual card to write down situations and keep it on file. Then maybe turn it in on Friday during the week in case a leak might be minor on Monday and it's not ready to go to the maintenance, but they're watching it and come Friday it's worse, then we know we got to get it to there. But there's usually a card that helps guide people to inspect the vehicles. It happens on CDLs, for example. And if that's all they had on their card, that's all they'd do. And I'm sure I can come up with more of it, if you want me to hand some in.
Well, I mean, I want to make sure that whatever that requirement is, I want to make sure we specifically address it.
I'll get it to you. I know I said it now, but that's why I say I think it needs to be looked in more. I'm not prepared to pass this yet.
Any other comments?
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution R25-005, the fleet policy.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution R25-005. That's the fleet policy. All in favor? Opposed? Pass.
This approves resolution number R25005 with a vote of 5. I'm trying. Forgot Mr. Arvizo was gone. Approval of 5-1 with Vice Mayor Lopez opposing. And this is resolution number R25-005, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, adopting the City of Safford fleet policy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just make a comment too. I'm glad to have this resolution. At least it's finally written. And I think with our new leadership and all that, things will be looked at a little more closely than, like if the comment was made, well, things are said, but then they're never followed through. I think they'll be followed through. That's all I have to say. Okay. Number 13, ordinance number 025-005. It's an amendment to Title 17 zoning.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a second read of Ordinance 025-005, Amendment to Title 17 Zoning, Chapter 17. Oh, we both shared it at the same time. Of Title 17 Zoning, Chapter 17.12.250, metal storage container boxes to effectively balance the need for storage solutions while preserving community aesthetic, safety, and zoning integrity. Strategic goals are growth and development. Background is the same as at the discussion on April 14th, 2025 for the first read. And you have in your report that the fire chief has answered Councilman McGoy's questions about the setbacks and that those will be addressed in the general plan update. And as of today, Senate Bill 1229 still applies to communities greater than 70,000 people. The legislature is on a spring break currently, so we'll see when they come back how they move on that bill. A first read for the ordinance was held on April 28th, 2025. The analysis remains the same as that meeting, and staff recommends a second reading and adoption of ordinance 025-005. Your attachments are the ordinance with the red-lined Exhibit A from our current code, and with that, I will stand for questions.
Do you have any questions?
Do I understand that this ordinance, as the previous resolution was, is a fluid document and going to be looked at frequently for a while until we know we got it nailed down? It's just a starting point?
Yes, Mayor Ortega and Councilman McGoy, all of the setbacks and these aesthetic items will be looked at in depth with the general plan update that is budgeted beginning July 1st, 2025. And with this document on record, the staff report and your comments that were made at the council meeting, that shines an extra light on it so that we make sure that all of these issues are looked at in their entirety through the general plan update.
Thank you.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 025-005. Second read.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 025-005. It's the second read. All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you.
This approves ordinance number 025-005, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.12.250, metal storage container boxes to streamline and update the development regulations within the City of Safford.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 14, report on operational items.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Matthew Hoschel, your Deputy Finance Director. Just a little background before we get into this item. Unfortunately, I didn't get it in time to get it in your packet. I did send an email today with the document. I'll also be putting it up on the screen. But some background on this quarterly financial report. During my time as I moved into the Deputy Finance Director position and as I oversaw the budget, I found a need, or a need was for us to meet with the departments on a quarterly basis so they can understand their budgets versus what they're spending or what they're actually spending. So that way we can come to a more comprehensive approach on when departments are producing their budgets each year. They know exactly what they're spending their money on. So with that being said, the city manager and I met. We went over lots of documents that he had produced in his many years in other lives, and came up with an idea of what we wanted to see from our departments and what we wanted to have conveyed in those meetings. We've held a couple quarterly meetings so far this first year, or this fiscal year was the first time that we had quarterly meetings. We had one back in October, we had one in January, and then we just recently had one at the end of April. This document that you're going to see is a result of that, as well as some previous documentation that was found that Council Member Flores had talked about. And so this is kind of just the first bite of the apple for this operational item. These will be presented quarterly, and hopefully they'll be presented with the P card and the other financial statements so that Council has a better picture of how departments are spending their money and how versus their budget. So with that being said, I will put it up on the screen.
Mr. Hoschel,
Yes, ma'am.
can you please re-email that because I didn't get anything from you today?
All right. Okay. I apologize. I did try to send it on my phone. If you didn't get it, I can send it out again tonight.
Thank you.
Let me try to make this bigger too.
And in the future, as he said, it will be part of the regular packet. So, and
Well, then this is all new for you guys, and so this will be really exciting, and we can go through this together. With that being said, this document that you have in front of you now, not a couple hours ago, or rather, this will have the budget for the current year, what was actually spent for the current year, and then the prior year budget and the prior year actual, and then the percent of those budgets. It's broken down by each department or division, we call it on this. And the goal is to show a picture of what they've spent to date up through the quarter. And so typically, and it really depends on each department, through 3 quarters, 75% of their budget should be spent. If not, there could be larger purchases that take place at the beginning of the year or larger purchases that take place at the end of the year. One of the things that we like to see, or that we see with some stuff, is like with property taxes, you only get it twice a year. You only get that revenue twice a year sometimes. And so you'll see that revenue only coming in 2 different tranches throughout the year. It's similar with purchasing. Sometimes you have longer lead times. And so if a department budgets for something at the beginning of the year, they won't be able to purchase that, or it won't arrive and be paid for until later in the year. Anyways, with that being said, I color-coded each of the percentages to kind of show if they were in line with what they actually have spent to date versus their budget. Green means that they were within a 5% of that 75% number. Yellow means they were below the 5% plus or minus rather, so 70% or lower. And then red means that they were over, not necessarily meaning that it's bad, but it means that they're over that 75%. And I'll talk about some departments that were over and why they are over in some cases. So as we see in the council, manager, attorney, and clerk budgets, they are within that 75%. So I would say they're on track to spend what they have budgeted for the year. As we look at support services like human resources, financial and finance services, they're within line. Our human resources is a little bit below. This is due to turnover in personnel. And so that turnover, you have a little bit of vacancy savings in that instance. When we move on to police, the court, and the fire department, We see the police is a little bit under. That is due to some operating supplies and lead times on some stuff that they're ordering and stuff that they will be getting in. Other than that, they're on track with their personnel budget as well. The court, I feel like, is on track with the cases and what we have budgeted. That all depends on caseload and what we get at the municipal court. If we see an influx of cases, then that obviously will have to pay more to the town of Thatcher for that. Our fire department is a little bit under what they're budgeted. This is also having to do with lead times on operational supplies that they've ordered and then when they have been received. Stop me at any point if you have any questions on this. For our community services, planning and community development is a little bit over. This is due to the increase in cost of the air show. That air show event did come out of her budget. And so with that increased cost, we did see a larger than normal budgeted amount or actual spend in that department. Other than that, as we move down that list, some of the other departments have operational expenses that they're going to buy, as well as they have department turnover or vacancy savings where there's positions that haven't been filled for some time, and that would lead to having a lower than 75% number. As we get into the golf course, you can see in the far right column, that is the fiscal year 24 actual to budget. And so when we look at this, I looked at what they had actually spent last year versus what they actually budgeted in that percentage as well. And if you see, they're kind of in line with what they spent last year. The golf course is unique is because they aren't cyclical in their spending, meaning that they don't spend the same amount every month. In the beginning of the fiscal year, they spend a lot of money because of their overseeding. And so the front end of their budget is usually when they spend the most, and then it tails off towards the end. And so that's why you'll see that the golf course is at that really high, close to 100%. They typically don't spend a lot in operating supplies as they get closer to the end of their fiscal year.
I have a question on golf course.
Yes, Councilwoman Flores.
I'm just curious on the, do you have the revenues that were received for the golf course, actual versus budget, or?
Mayor, Councilmember Flores, yes, the revenues are reflected in the general fund revenue total.
But do you have that broken out by any chance?
I do not have it broken out on this sheet. I can send it separately on what we've received to date.
Okay. I maybe in the future would like to see that because I feel like that is significant to know that the, you know, that 1.3 million of expenses is offset by some revenues. And so
I can put a
Possibility.
separate line in for the golf course revenue. I think that it would make sense to also then show airport as well with some of those kind of unique funds in which they have offsetting revenue. It would make sense to have a separate line so you can kind of see those departments which are bringing in funds for their services, in which they were trying to get to that point where they kind of reach that offsetting amount. I think it would be appropriate.
thank you.
And for the budget for 26, you're moving the air show from planning to airport, correct?
Mayor, Councilwoman Brantner, that is correct, yes. Moving down, airport, I would say that that's within line. It's at 77%. It's very close to 75%. So even with all the stuff and the activity that's going on there, the airport manager is doing a very good job at staying kind of within his budgetary constraints. Moving down, we see the debt service payments. These come in more towards the end of the year on a lot of these payments, so we'll see those hit later. And then as we look at the expenditure total line, so what we budgeted versus what we spent so far, we're at about 40%. If we look at last year, it's about the same percentage of what we spent versus what we've actually budgeted. That line does include capital, so capital projects and operating expenses are included in those total numbers. If we look at general fund revenues, we're at 92% of what we budgeted, 3/4 of the way through the year, which means we're doing really well. If we look at last year, we were at about 56%.
I have a question. So I also, for the general fund revenues, do you think we could have the line item for the sales tax revenue? That's our single largest line item, and I'd like to see that one maybe just broken out and see how that is against the budget as well.
Mayor, Councilwoman Flores, yes, I can do that. I want to also, I do produce a revenue report which does have just that, the sales tax in that. So we can get that along with this, which would be a separate document, which breaks down each of the separate, like the retail classification, restaurant and bar classification. So that can be included. I can also have that separate line, which you are correct. It makes about like 60-70% of our overall general fund revenue. So I can break that out in a separate line too. And again, this is just a start. This was kind of like where we're going, what we want to see, and council, all the input is great. So that way, when we go forward into the upcoming, it would be the end of year is the next one that you will see. I can have all those things in there. Economic development. This is right now the single one that we have in here is the airfare, or the air service line is coming out of this. So that's going to be changing as we go into next year with the funds and the grants that he got. That will be replenishing some of the economic development fund. And then that will also be drawing from that economic development fund as well. So that one, again, not as cyclical, it's more unique. And so it won't see it like the 75% line that we're going to see in most of these other departments. That's it for the general fund. We're going to move into streets next, our special revenue fund. Streets expenditures are right at the 75% mark. Their revenues, which are very strongly tied to our sales tax numbers, is at about 78%. And then so their total expenditures overall is 22%. That does include their capital projects. A large project that is in that number is the Hollywood Road project. There is some movement on that project, but that project will not be finished in the current fiscal year. So you'll see that number carried over in the budget as we look into 26. Next up, we have our enterprise funds. Sanitation expenses and revenues are coming in right where they should be. Landfill is coming in well with expenses. With debt and capital projects, their debt comes in the payment is made once a year and is towards the end of the year. The revenue, the reason why the revenue is below right now, we did switch over to new software at the landfill in December, fully with that. We sent out bills, as we saw with the GCRC and St. Vincent de Paul bills, and them seeing those for the first time. We're still trying to figure out the nuance of the billing system with that and whether or not people are paying in a timely manner. And so we are aware of people not paying on time, and we're trying to rectify this situation. And so that's why the numbers are low, because there's outstanding bills that we're trying to collect on. In water, the expenses are under because of personnel savings and vacancies. Other than that, capital projects, they have a large capital project in Sanchez Road, which is $12 million of that, and Lebanon is the other one of $4 million. So that's why the capital number is as low as it is. Revenues are doing well, though. Similar in wastewater, they have vacancy savings. Capital projects, they are doing a little bit better than in the water department. They are completing some there, and the revenue is doing well as well in wastewater. Gas, the major expense in gas is the purchase for resale, and with a mild winter, we did not have to purchase as much gas, and so therefore that is going to be under what we would expect for a 75% expense number. Revenues are doing well, though. Electric, very similar. Their large expenses purchased for resale, and we are well under what we budgeted on our purchase for resale, and so that's why that number is as low. We are doing well on the revenue side, though. And then finally, we have the internal services, fleet materials, business services, IT, AMI, engineering, and utility support. The main one that I would say is much greater, or the main two rather, that are much greater are the materials and AMI. An item was brought to you tonight to buy meters, and that is one of the reasons why those budgets are higher, is because we have to have those meters in stock and materials. And then AMI is the one that checks them out for materials to install them. And so with us having to replace a lot more meters because of the warranties and them failing, those departments are seeing an increase But with our internal services and the way that we budget for them, those costs do get distributed to the other departments. At the end of the year, you'll see we'll bring an item, finance will bring an item with a true up of the different departments and how we're going to shift the costs so that each of the budgets will end up balanced at the end of the year. And you'll see how those internal services are getting cost out to shift those costs so that each of the departments at the end of the year meets what their budget is versus their actuals and what will be going into fund balance. Any questions? Thank you.
I do have a comment. That was as exciting as I thought it was going to be. Thank you, Matthew. That was a great summary, though, for real. And I think it gave us a lot of really good information. So thank you.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to item number 15, announcement of current events. Anybody? Not, we'll, a request for future agenda items. Number 17.
Mayor, move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? We're adjourned.